And so this week, we decided to transfer our apocalypse theme to a more zombie apocalypse. And we thought, hey, let's start with the classics. Let's start with George Romero's classics. Highly regarded films. Very highly rated films. Night of the Living Dead, and then the sequel, Dawn of the Dead. And so they're the films we're talking about. And so, Kieran, what did you think of these two classics?
I watched Night of the Living Dead first. I'll talk about my thoughts about that, because I feel like it's probably going to be the shorter
yeah, I don't have as much to say for sure.
Yeah, I kind of found it charming, and I was trying to place it historically in zombie films, and it's kind of the first one, and they're called ghouls. They're not called zombies yet.
Yeah.
It felt very kind of... I mean, it felt like someone figuring out how to make a zombie movie, which is exactly what it is, and it leads to so much in the future. And it has a kind of charm to it, and it actually feels to me, it feels more, it honestly feels like an excellent TV pilot from the 1960s. but the way it plays out, you know, I could see this ending in a completely different way, and you're just following the main character, and then it leads on to you know, this would have been the best TV shows in the 60s ever. Like, it would have been way ahead of its time, but it's a movie. It just didn't quite feel like it. I don't know what it was. If it was the aspect ratio, it was the way they were shooting it, or if it was just because it was a little bit lower budget. And I don't know. The characters are kind of half-baked, but the movie is so simple that it's a lot easier to forgive. Like the action's kind of wonky, and there's lots of like people getting into scuffles with each other, and you know that stuff has probably aged the worst as well. And
but it is 68 or something. Like, it's a very old movie. I love zombies when I was 15 to 21ish. Zombies were my favorite thing. You know, like, there's over the top gore, it's violent, it's just, I love everything about like humans devouring humans, and this just the whole way it feels in this movie. In like both these movies though, all the weakest elements of all of it was like actually visually seeing the zombies. I found it like comical. I found it completely uninteresting. They're so slow. They're so slow and so scary and I don't want the zombies to like run. It's not like I'm so used to modern zombies running and being like, oh, I find that a bit too like, well, you just couldn't survive. If the whole world was zombies and they ran, you couldn't beat them. They'd run at you too quick and they'd get you. It's just that's kind of why I like the Zack Snyder movie, because they like and why I like 28 Days Later. Danny Boyle's film. Two movies that came... Yeah, see, I hate that.
Really? Oh, okay.
It's not what I want from, like, when I, like, as a kid, like, I don't know, because, like, you've helped me with a couple of films I made, but it's, like, the stuff I made before that when I was in high school and stuff, it's just, like, get a balloon, fill it with blood, put some things, put a fake wig on it, and just throw it at a tree. That's your severed head exploding over a tree. You know, like, I just like that, like, visceral, over-the-top, insane fun.
That's why I thought you would have liked...
there's no fun in these movies.
No, in 28 Days Later.
But see, 28 Days Later, it's so like grim and gritty and dirty. And the best part of that movie is him waking up mid-apocalypse because he's been in a coma. Yeah. But that was stolen by the Walking Dead show, which I'd already read and watched as a show.
Oh,
and this was before I hated it. So I kind of, you know, my surrogate into that world was the comics, The Walking Dead. So when I watched 28 Days Later, I wasn't like, wow, look at this. I was like, it's the same. It doesn't matter if this was, I don't know. I actually don't know which one was first, but that, you know, I don't know. I found it's a weird, like, it gets to like a weird army bit and all the army guys. I don't know. Just the whole movie feels kind of dirty, gross. And apart from him shooting on his iPhone in London where it looks actually empty, the whole movie doesn't. I've watched it with a mate who hates everything. And he loved it. He's like, that's the best zombie movie. He's like, it's the only good zombie movie. And I'm just sitting there being like, I hate you now. Get out of my house. Like, what are you talking about? I don't know. It's just...
I think I know you well enough to know that you were probably really just steered off by the opening being so familiar. And I don't... Yeah. And I don't know that I don't know that the movie... Not that it doesn't offer enough, it just is... I guess we've seen it done so many times that I don't know, because the opening never really wowed me, but I watched the movie, a couple of years after it came out in cinemas, so there was no Walking Dead in my mind at that point.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was just letting the experience wash over me. But what I remember about 28 Days Later is not the hospital sequence at all. Because I didn't even realize that was impressive until I saw the behind the scenes. You know what I mean?
Oh, wow.
I just thought they shut the city down. They were making a movie. Like, I didn't know that it was special. And then I see the behind the scenes and it's like, no, they were really making a smaller movie than I thought. And
they just like snuck in and did it.
Yeah. So I wasn't even impressed until years later finding that out. So what I love about it is how the zombies infect, how they vomit blood and just try to like,
I generally don't remember that, so...
Yeah, they spread their bodily fluid, not by, like, biting, but they'll, like, pin you down and just, vomit blood all over your face.
I love it. I love that. I mean, maybe I just got to rewatch the movie. It's been years and years and years.
I think you would really like it, especially after watching these movies, because it feels like that. I'm pretty sure it's early 2000s, I guess, where everyone's starting to remix a lot of the stuff from the past and remake and blend.
We got really into zombies suddenly. There was like a huge zombie thing. Because I remember I was in like film school and I was like, I want to make a zombie music video. And my teachers were like, boo, zombies are dead. We hate zombies. I was like, what the fuck? Zombies are the biggest thing. Walking Dead's at season 3 or something. It got good again.
Well, I've long maintained that genre is irrelevant and that it only matters what the last great movie was. And if you get a string of bad movies in a genre, people will call it dead. And if you have a string of strong movies, they'll say that it's in its golden era.
No, you are. That's. Oh man, that's.
I feel like
it's very wise of you to say. You're absolutely right.
We hear that the Western is constantly dead, and then a great Western comes out a couple of years later, and everyone.
The Western's back. True Grit did it.
Yeah, but no, it didn't because
no, it didn't. It's just
like,
a good movie.
Yeah, because like some people consider like Logan a Western, like a quintessential Western film, and that was really great. Almost, and then you had like Django, and then you have Quentin Tarantino's playing
so many
in
good
that.
Modern Westerns.
Yeah, and the Coen brothers are playing in that field, and you've got like the best filmmakers ever still making westerns. I would also argue Breaking Bad is a neo-western.
Yes,
and
such a western.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
westerns are being retold in the modern era. If you have a man against the law, you have a western basically, or if you have a man on the frontier, without law at all. Like those two things are where the western fits in. So something like Breaking Bad is like anchored by, it's Walt and Hank really, the lawman and
100%.
And the man and the guy Breaking Bad.
And the son of a bitch who breaking the law. Yeah.
So Night of the Living Dead, the ending, I had a feeling watching it that people would interpret it to mean to be some civil rights kind of meaning.
A racial kind of like situation?
Yeah, as I'm watching it play out. And
do you mean like do you mean like spoilers? That's what we do here. Do you mean the end where he's like, bam, got him, good shot in the head, let's move it on? That bit, yeah?
Yeah, and
like the end, yeah.
That for the, yeah, exactly right. So the main character we've been following the whole movie is killed by the roaming kind of people cleaning up the zombie mess that occurred the night before. So just the local people.
I fucking love that feeling of like the idea. I think the first movie does a great way of being like, this is like what would happen. They'd be like, we bloody got this. We don't know how long. He's like, do you reckon it'll be done in 24 hours? He's like, yeah, you bloody, we go. He's like having his cigar or whatever. And he's like, all the boys are sitting around just like, I don't know, just the idea that like, we'll just move through town after town, house after house, and we've bloody got this, mate. And it's just such a naive, idiot. I don't know. I mean, obviously we see it from I know the zombie apocalypse is too great for them to be able to handle that way. Well, but I think that's a really realistic way to try and deal with it. I love that aspect. That's my favorite part of the film, I think.
I think that if the zombies are moving at the pace they're moving at, it feels kind of perfect. Like that, it would be something that just kind of goes wrong one night and then we kind of clean it up the next day. And it was just this thing that happened. And
I guess as well because I know that there's a franchise of 7 films and that each film was like years or months later in the same apocalypse, that like I just know it doesn't work, so I guess just the context of
no, I don't know that, and I see what you're saying, and I know there's lots of films in this series, but I'm not even sure that they exist, and I've only seen 2 of them, but it does not feel like they're existing in the same continuity. Like Dawn of the Dead,
they are though, yeah. Like it doesn't feel like that.
You can, like, the director might be saying that. I'm just saying there's no evidence in the film that it's operating in the same universe. So
no. There's no connective tissue apart from
exactly. And people
later,
always like, oh, this film is connected to this because of whatever. If it's not in the movie, I don't care. You can think whatever you want in your head, but you didn't put it in. Yeah, like.
I think it's just meant to be that it's like later in the apocalypse. So it could be, I guess, different apocalypses.
I guess, it does kind of feel like...
When you see 3 and 4, I mean, I would never recommend. I was actually going to recommend we do 3 and 4 next week, but as soon as I started Dawn of the Dead, I was like, I don't want to. I can just tell you right now, they get worse and worse, and I actually thought Dawn was the best, but it's just got to be Night of the Living Dead because
at least it's new. That's what I want to keep coming back to. That's what I've been trying to say this whole time is Night of the Living Dead. It is kind of wonky and dated and probably a little bit. It's a filmmaker who's, you know, people a lot of the times they're like, this filmmaker was ahead of their time. This guy was not ahead of his time. He was lagging slightly behind, I would say. But he came up with
brutal. He's the king of zombies,
and
he's the godfather of zombies. No, I don't give.
He's had a long and successful career, and he just makes movies a different way to the way my tastes work, obviously. And he really doubles down on a lot of the stuff I don't like in Dawn of the Dead, and throws away. I mean,
the good stuff.
Night of the Living Dead has a very kind of basic plot and very, very, very thin characters, and there's enough there that you've got like a very, very simple hour and a half kind of just, you know, it's a fresh idea. They're playing with this universe. They're thinking about the real world, larger ramifications of it. I like the amount of thought that's gone into it. I like that none of this had ever been done before. It feels quite original, even if the filmmaking technically isn't as proficient as other films of that same era. There's enough here where I see what people have latched onto. You know what I mean? I understand what people see in this movie, and I see how the end could have led to people putting more weight into the script than I think it deserves, especially seeing that George Romero did not cast the lead actor because he was black, and that it wasn't in the script and it wasn't anywhere, and it was just the result that the lead actor happened to be I mean, if the same movie conceivably could have been made with the actors swapped into different positions and the movie plays out
like, yeah, if you switch the coward for the main character, like it's
just the actors. Yeah, you keep everything else the same, switch the actors, and you lose the whole thing, because there's nothing else in the movie making a point about a civil rights issue.
No, I didn't get a single, because I actually did a bit of Googling after, because I was kind of a bit, because I had 2 things that I never thought I'd think when I was watching this movie, and the first movie starts and I'm like, okay. But like 20, 30 minutes in, I was like, okay, I have a hot take, the hottest of take. George Romero hates women, or he thinks they're useless, and I think that proof is in the main female character in both movies. And in the second one, there's like a point halfway where she's like, husband, there's 4 of us here. And he's like, oh, I don't know, wife. And then the other main character's like, I think that's fair. And I'm like, yeah, like, why is this movie so sexist? Like, the first movie, the female character is so useless, so overwhelmed by her emotions, so... I don't know. I'm the least woke guy you're gonna meet. Like, it's just not how I view film. I guess it's just, as a white man, I guess it just doesn't come into my brain the first thing. This movie, almost immediately, I was like, fuck, he I don't know. I was just like trying to imagine showing some women I know in my life this movie, and they would stop it. They'd be like, this is offensive. It's so like, to the point where the main male character is like doing this huge like epic like monologue about like the horrors of what he's been through, the hundreds of zombies, the fire, they'd all died, all these lifeless ghouls were staring at me. And then she's like, I was in a park with my husband, there was just one man walking and he touched my face. And it was just the way he constructed these two scenes. And then the main character's like, oh, maybe stop your hysteria, woman character. Maybe stop being so outrageous. And I'm like, oh my God, I literally cannot believe what I'm watching. But then I'm like, I guess it's the 60s. So I don't know, man.
You're forgetting.
Did you get any of that? Did you get any of that? Or am I just being way too woke?
No,
I don't know, man.
You're forgetting more of it. She slaps him and then he punches her in the jaw.
Yes!
And she's knocked out.
I know, I was like, what the fuck? She slaps him and he punches the fuck out of her. It was her. I don't know, man. The whole aspect of the film I felt was, I don't know. I just didn't know how to feel. I was like, is he trying? I don't know. I just felt such a weird jab. And then I was like, I guess, I don't know. There's so many movies I watched that I'm like, yeah, this and this, but yeah, it's a bit dated. This felt like he was directly putting it in, because there was so many moments where she was just so, I don't know, her. And in the second one, the husband, like, there's a bit I can't remember which one it is, but there's a scene where someone's like, there's only 3 of us. We need all 3 of us. You better not die, man character, because there's all 3 of us need this. And I'm like, it's the first one. There's 5 of you in the room right now, and this character has just said all 3 of us need to do this. You've just, like, I don't know, the script was aggressively avoiding the female characters. And then at one point, one of like that other boyfriend guy that's just kind of there in the first movie with that awful haircut and that shitty tucked in pants or whatever. And he was just like, girlfriend character, please do this for me. She's like, I don't want to. He's like, you shut the hell up. Do what I say. I don't know. There were so many little things where I was like, I can't remember a movie I've watched that had this like.
Well, let's talk more about, because I think you're leaving quite a lot out here. I
might just be forgetting, because
you're forgetting so much, because
hit me.
You're forgetting the girlfriend of the young guy. Runs out of the house for no reason, jeopardizing everybody, gets in the car, then gets her jacket caught while petrol is spilled all over it, and then the car explodes and they burn to death. Yeah.
When I realized they were going to die because of the situation they'd caused, I was so angry. And then I was suddenly just so like, I thought this movie was getting good. Because, actually, I think Night of the Living Dead, for the first 20 minutes, is almost unwatchably terrible. and then there's suddenly a bald man, like a man with receding hair, runs up and he's like, I'm an angry man, and it's immediately you're like, holy shit, where did these guys come from? And they're like, you heard a woman screaming and you didn't come up to save her. And he's like, hey, it's hard to hear down there. And then 10 seconds later he's like, it was so loud I couldn't hear over the zombie screams. And I'm like, oh my God, the coward. The real person, the real human being has appeared in the movie. And the movie is now good. Because I think more than 50% of human beings are him. I would definitely be him. If I was under there and I was hearing all these sounds, I'd be like, I'm not risking it. I'm not risking my child or my wife for strangers. And it's brutal and I don't know. I felt that was, as soon as he appeared and I realized that he'd stayed under there and he hadn't helped them. He'd heard all this commotion, all this stuff. And the tension between him and the main guy, I was like, ooh, it's a movie. It's a real good movie, because I hated it until he appeared. Yeah. And I just think that, and then every time they were talking and just all that stuff, I was like really invested in real human beings. You've got your hero who's like, fuck this, let's shoot at, like, you know, he's kind of stepped up to the plate. And this other character is like, you know, he's stepped down, he's hiding, I don't know. All of that I felt was really compelling. And I actually thought the whole movie was amazing because of that. But the first scene with the zombie and the couple.
Can I just point out, when that zombie walked out, I thought it was Peter Capaldi from Doctor Who.
Yeah.
I don't know why. It just looked exactly like him. He looks
That's
like...
amazing. I fucking wish it was. That would have been so
I
good.
want to edit his head onto that guy walking through the grave. I don't even think you would notice the difference. I was like, is that the 12th Doctor or whatever it is?
Whatever Doctor.
Also, not joking around. What a strange choice to just. I guess we've just begun with. I mean, you're in a cemetery. I feel like you have the perfect opportunity to maybe instead of spending the opening 6 minutes playing car footage of a car driving in and out of frame.
So boring.
Maybe we have a hand popping out of the ground or something cliche and terrible like that. At least
no, but see that the iconic imagery of that comes from good zombie movies, which we'll get to in later weeks. Because you'll see it and you'll be like, wow, that's cliche, silly, and dumb, but is this the greatest thing I've ever seen? Yes.
I think
spoilers, I won't tell you which movie that comes from, but you will see it in the next 3 weeks.
George Romero is, I think, just a kind of...
A hack! No.
Well, no, I think he's...
Not at all, no.
He's a run and gun, or... I'm a photographer as well, and we call this... someone who does this in photography, the term is referred to as spray and pray, as in you. And I know, it sounds dirty. It's not. It's not.
It sounds real dirty.
It's not dirty at all. It's spray and pray, which is It's honestly not that funny. It's just I'm gonna take heaps of photos of something and hope that I get a really good one instead of trying to take the photo carefully. So they call it, because when you hold down the shutter on like an expensive camera, it'll go and just take a bunch of photos. And then you end up with 20 or 30 photos of the thing, and then you pick out the best one. And people who are photographers will call that spray and pray. And it's just...
The run and gun approach.
Exactly. Yeah. Take as many photos as possible, and when you get home, figure it out. And that's what George Romero...
Fix it in post kind of thing,
Yeah, George Romero is the spray and pray of... filmmakers. It seems he just gets a bunch of footage of stuff and then assembles it all, just edits it all together with very little idea, maybe even of what he's doing on the day, or they block the scene out on the day, figure it out. It just all seems very hasty and rushed and frenetic, and the way everything is edited together constantly seems like there was very little planning put into it. And kind of the more intense things get in his movies, the faster the editing gets. And it's and that is not always indicative of horror. I think it's indicative of bad horror for the most part. I think that what you see with really good, and all of the horror filmmakers that I enjoy watching, is that when they get to a tension-filled scene, you'll see them slow down, if anything. The editing you'll get a long uncut shot of something. You'll maybe only see something small in the background, a figure, a silhouette. All of these things take time and precision, and you need to light them properly, and you need to shoot it properly, and you need to make sure the blocking is perfect. And I don't get any of that from his movies. I get, all right, you're going to grab him and scuffle and fall down, and we're going to shoot 8 takes of it, and then I'll piece it all together, and
I'll just pick one because whatever,
and then it'll still kind of look clumsy. And that more so, I think Night of the Living Dead is a more planned out and probably more well executed film than Dawn of the Dead, even though Dawn of the Dead is more expensive and bigger and has, a decade more filmmaking technology.
It's a whole decade later, man. I think that I don't know. I think the difference, I don't know. I feel like it gets worse. I feel like he loses sight of
of story, of character, of
the tightness of telling like a story. Yeah, like a plot, like an actual. It feels so like Dawn of the Dead is so. I don't know. The whole movie, I was just like, the zombies in the movie are such a apt representation of the film I'm watching. Yeah. The effects have just been splotted on like they had 20 seconds before the shot was rolling.
Yeah.
The gore is honestly like embarrassing. the effects, the zombies themselves are embarrassing. As
The effects-
the biggest monster fan, the biggest effects fan, biggest practical zombie, gory, monstery stuff, you compare this to all the classic 80s and 90s zombie films that I think are the reason I like, gory films in any way. It's an embarrassment.
I'll surmise my thoughts on Night of the Living Dead. It's it's quaint, it's outdated, it's got a whole bunch of really great, interesting new ideas that we end up seeing kind of explored and picked apart by excellent filmmakers over the coming decades. Unfortunately, it seems like the good idea is maybe where it starts and ends with him, and there's not a huge amount that I think he has to offer past that. And maybe I'm surmising it a little bit harshly. I just think that I've seen a little bit too much of this era to know where people are at, to know what filmmaking technology is available. I always lean on the side of forgiving the filmmaker and being like, we know how hard it is to make something great, but it still seems like this one's lagging behind a bit. It still seems like, of what I'm aware of the era, while the ideas are good and fresh, the execution isn't. And I think what we see when we move from Night of the Living Dead to Dawn of the Dead is there's like a 10-year break where he's making movies through this period. I don't know what any of the movies are in between, but I don't think that they're horror films. And I could be completely wrong, but I think...
I haven't done any research. I have no idea.
I feel like when I was skimming the titles, they didn't jump out as horror films. I hope I'm not wrong about that, but it maybe he moved away and didn't do a lot of horror. But coming back, and when he came back and did Dawn of the Dead, I feel like he took all of the wrong paths to follow from what the first film is and doubled down on just everything feels wrong to me. Feels not the way I would do it, not the way I like to watch it, not entertaining but grating, and I think this is really like an overused, way too often said phrase, but this movie is an assault on the senses. In every...
You were offended.
I'm not offended. But I was kind of angry that someone made me watch this. Not you, the filmmaker. Like, I wanted to watch it, but that he thought that... and people love this movie, and this movie has had such a...
It's so highly regarded as like a classic, and it is fucking nothing. It is a nothing film. I Googled after, I was like, do people still like this? Like, I know at the time, people would have been like, it's too gory. It's so, oh my God, there's zombies walking through a supermarket like we are. Oh, commercially. Oh, and I'm like, no. That's all bullshit. This film has nothing to say about consumerism or materialism or any of that bullshit. There's not a single second of that. There's like one line where it's like, they've come back to the supermarket more because like that's what they remember. It's like, fuck off. It's so shallow. It has nothing to say.
I think it's
so boring.
I think it's the equivalent of in the first movie.
Oh my God, I hate it so much.
Well, no, what I was saying before about the civil rights message that people took from the first movie and discussed.
Yeah.
They've done the same thing here, where it's just circumstantially in the first movie they cast an African-American actor. So now there's all this meaning there. Circumstantially in the second film, he sets it in a mall. So now it's all about capitalism and consumerism. I don't know what he does in the third movie, but whatever it is, we must award this filmmaker all the credit that he doesn't deserve for exploring something he doesn't explore, just because...
It just happens to be set in a mall. It has nothing about like...
That's as far as it goes. It's like, this is a cool aesthetic. This is a place that I can cut off and confine and do my special effects stunts, which is essentially what this movie is. It is a showreel for special effects, makeup stunts, and most
The
of them are
worst
poorly
effects.
done.
So, like, the headshots, like, there's a couple of headshots, like, here and there throughout the movie where it's, like, the explosion of the brain, the blood. It's, like, technically, it's good. It's not bad. But the actual zombie makeup is just someone grabbing blue paint and just half smearing it on their faces. It's so embarrassing. It just doesn't, they don't look like they're undead or they've been, like, they're meant to have been, like, mortified or whatever that word is, like pale and, like, rigor mortis or, like, it was baffling to me. It was so poor. Like, this isn't made in 52 where this is the first time they've tried to put effects on a man and then shot it with the camera. You know what I mean? Like, this is, I don't know. It has no excuse for being as boring. And then just the acting of the zombies. Like, there are so many shots in Dawn of the Dead where they're, like, out in the fucking, like, they're out in those trucks. Okay, so we spend 50 minutes of the movie them getting trucks, bringing trucks back, and the cocky cop guy who's definitely not going to get himself bitten because he's being too cocky gets bitten because he's too cocky. Oh, they're just so boring. But it's like the truck sequence. We got to block this mall down. The bad guys come in the end, and they're like, "Hey, there's this door. We can just slide it right open." Slide the door open. The truck. It just so there was no. They didn't have to get rid of the truck, so it's not like cause and effect. It's just scene after scene of just things that happen, but nothing gels or. Do you know what I mean? Like it so.
It kind of.
I don't know, man.
Do you know? It kind of reminded me.
I'm so angry.
In the worst ways of like Rogue One.
Yep.
A Star Wars
Okay. Yes.
story.
No. Yes. A terrible script and movie as well. Explain how.
And also a director that is probably a little bit out of his element, that does particular things quite well, but that cannot kind of put together a film in the way that, I mean, I watched a review for Dawn of the Dead after watching it, which I don't normally do because I want to do this podcast kind of without opinions being filtered from other people. But I had to know what the kind of thinking was, what the mindset was for people who enjoy this movie, and where
are they coming from?
And what am I missing? Because there's love for this movie and I'm missing something. And normally I can see the thing even if I don't enjoy it. You know, I'm like, that's where it is. But everything about this movie screams, no, this does it better and before and with less talent and less money. I mean, I know this wasn't a big budget movie, but it cost $1.5 million. And he both...
And for the time, it's embarrassing.
I mean, $1.5 million in 1978, that's like a fair bit of money. And
it's heaps of money.
He both stretches it really thin and also makes it look very cheap. I mean, I'm just thinking about the opening, I guess. I mean, the opening of the film is all in the news station, which I just did not enjoy at all. I don't think we get really I mean, the main character, the female lead, is introduced there, and I mean, barely.
It's really.
But everyone is screaming.
Is the right word?
Everyone is screaming over the top of each other for the entire sequence, and it's so far. It's so far over. Like it's too much. I get you want to show the chaos of the world at the time, but you don't have all the money to do it. The breakdown of society message can be illustrated, you know, in a much more succinct way with way less people and much more subtly, and that's not obviously what he's going for. But then we cut to the hotel or apartment building, sorry, and the police are storming it. Yeah,
the place where the police are like breaking in to like fuck shit up.
And there's just
I can't even remember if it's an apartment or what.
I think
there
it's
are places
an apartment
with doors. There's definitely doors.
And they're going up the stairs, and they're
I hate the first half an hour so much. It's so.
And there's just an insane cop who is just killing people that aren't zombies. I mean, the amazing head explosion you talked about, it's just a guy, isn't it? Doesn't he just bust the door down and just blow a guy's head off? And I'm like, what?
Doesn't it feel kind of like someone after he made Night of the Living Dead was like, oh my God, the emotion I felt when the main character, who we know is human, gets shot by people who think it's a zombie. And, you know, it's just like someone kept telling him that was the greatest ending of a movie ever. Planet of the what? This is the greatest movie ending ever. And he's like, I better start my movie with more of that. So I'll just have a psycho cop going mental, killing humans. But I don't know.
Who
man.
then immediately gets killed. So doesn't even
Yeah,
have an
it's like-
impact on the...
I would love, like, I don't know. I just feel like if you're going to set a movie with 4 dudes, like 4 people in a fucking mall, and it's 4 people in a mall getting the mall to be what they want it to be, and then the final act is them defending this mall they've created to be their new home. That's what the film is trying to be, essentially.
Yeah.
But I don't know, man. I literally feel like I get more of that storyline from the OC episode where their 4 main characters get stuck in a mall for the night. And they're like, oh my God, there's so much to do here in the mall all night. And then all the character stuff happens and all, you know, but it's like they use the idea of being stuck in a mall and having everything at your fingertips, but also kind of being trapped in this prison. But in this movie, it's more like, the character's just like, you all see it as this place where we have everything, but I see it as a prison. And then that's the line they say it. He's like, we've had the scene, we've had the moment, and now let's just have more meandering of trying to get some trucks in front of doors for no reason. For no fucking reason. And then I don't know, it just felt like I had no moment where they got to enjoy the fact they lived in a mall. The fact, I don't know, there was just so many beats that I wanted for what the story was trying to tell. And I guess it was just not making the movie I wanted to see.
He's not even really making...
A movie?
Well, with a narrative...
It was so meandering. I was so angry. So what was that?
Yeah, with like a clear narrative? No, he's
Yeah.
not. It doesn't even seem to be... You know, it's not his intention. It's not on his radar to be doing the norm. It's like he's operating outside he's an independent filmmaker, just making whatever he wants. But for some reason, people are eating it up, and nobody's kind of stopping to I know I compared it to a Rogue One, but I also want to compare it to another film, which I think the closest thing that I can think of where I've seen a movie and just not understood at all what people saw in it, but people love it, is Boondock Saints. I don't know.
Fuck, I've not seen it.
And there's a weird crossover here. Norman Reedus is one of the leads in that movie.
Oh my God.
Who's also...
Zombie Crossbow Man. Yes,
Yeah.
Yes.
And
is that's the soccer movie, right? Like
no. It's like a gangster movie. it's a post Tarantino world, and it's maybe the worst copycat film.
So is it like 7 Psychopaths, where it's like, look at all this?
No. 7 Psychopaths is good.
Okay, I don't think so. I disagree.
No.
Let's do it on the pod one week and let's yell.
No. I guarantee you, if you sat down and watched Boondock Saints and 7 Psychopaths, you would walk away going, 7 Psychopaths is like a competent movie with pretty decent actors, and it's kind of forgettable. Boondock Saints is just awful, and it's like doing the coolest thing.
I want to watch it now.
Yeah, it would make an interesting episode of this to discuss, but I wouldn't watch it other than doing something like this.
You'd never want to watch it.
And what it is a filmmaker with a very clear misunderstanding of what the appeal of another film or filmmaker is, but what he sees in Tarantino and kind of remixes, which funnily enough is what Tarantino is doing with really good filmmakers. And now this person
he's the remix king.
So he's and like everything that came out was really successful. You know, Terminator came out, there were a bunch of knockoffs. Tarantino becomes big, people knock him off, and you see it kind of trickle into cinema.
That kind of style of pop culture, gangsters,
but it's the fact that they
music.
But they miss the point of what makes Tarantino work, and they double down on a bad aesthetic and bad music choices and bad performances and all the bad cues that you think are why Tarantino is doing a thing, But then when you actually
Yeah.
hear him talk about it, and you see, no, there is actually more to this. He has thought this through a lot more. Tarantino making Pulp Fiction is not the same as this guy making Boondock Saints, is what I'm trying to say. And what is funny about Boondock Saints is that even though this filmmaker, in my opinion, has a very clear misunderstanding of what works, that misunderstanding still has enough resonance to appeal to a huge swath of people to make him successful in his own right. So, you know, Boondock Saints got, like, I think a sequel or two because it was successful enough. It's almost like this guy missed the interpretation of Tarantino, but stumbled onto something I would say is worse and just like a crappy, inferior version of it. But it suited people's tastes, like people who aren't even particularly fans of Tarantino. It's strange what does that.
So,
I think
so Boondogs is successful generally.
Boondock Saints.
What was I saying? Boondogs.
Yeah.
I think I've always thought it was a different name, Boondock Saints. Because as soon as you said it, I'm like, I have heard so much about this movie, but I have no visual. Like, there's not a single image or visual in my brain. But I think until this conversation, I did think it was like Green Street Hooligans. Which is so weird. It's like, why? Why did
because of the title, I guess you're linking it to something British, but it's American. I think that's what is. Maybe the title of it sounds.
Yeah. It's just funny how those things like blend in, because I've heard a lot about that film, but yeah, I couldn't.
It's real bad. It makes all the worst choices. It does everything wrong. It doesn't really.
Is it like a gangster film or like that kind of world? Yeah, right.
And the script blew up before. So the script was really sought after and coveted for a long time. Because everyone thought this guy was going to be the next Tarantino, I guess. But
so who is this guy? Do I know him? Has he made other stuff? Or?
No, he fizzled out. I think he made a sequel to it like 10 years later, and it was
like a Boondock Saints 2 or whatever.
Yep, with the same two actors, and it's even worse. And
of course it is. Yeah.
The saving grace of Boondock Saints is that you have a completely insane performance by his name.
Mickey Rourke?
I can't believe I forgot it. I always forget this guy's name. The bad guy in Spider-Man 1, Green Goblin.
William Dafoe.
Yeah. So
Boondock... I might watch it now. If he's giving a performance...
Let me say it again so I can edit it, because I just fucked it. Boondock Saints has... Boondock Saints... saving grace is that it has an insane performance by I've forgotten his name again. I don't care.
William Dafoe. You can just say the Green Goblin. Everyone knows the guy who should have had the Green Goblin, the guy who looks more like a goblin.
Completely
his
insane
goblin costume does,
I think he knows the movie he's in, and I think he just
he's fantastic in everything though. Like really.
And
like, take him out of Spider-Man 1. It's like, I don't know, man.
Boondock Saints.
He's great.
Boondock Saints will give you some enjoyment for how wrong it goes. I think it becomes funny. Whereas this, the further Dawn of the Dead goes wrong. Yeah, for me, the more grating, the more I just found myself getting angry.
Something that I found very, 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 very frustrating, like fucking infuriating, and it just kept having me flashbacks to like the 5-year period where I watched The Walking Dead and I slowly became disinterested, angry, annoyed, kind of enjoyed how bad it was, and then kind of really sick of it. Was that zombie things. So you got the I'm a slow moving zombie, I'm coming to get you, and that can create a certain type of tension. But then there are I'm gonna say 40 to 50 moments in these two fucking movies where someone is in a position in a corner of a room or, in a part of a room where they can't get out, and there's like 4 or 5 zombies or 20 zombies or whatever, and they're all like, and then they just kind of get out because they're so slow, they're so dumb, they're so boring, and like, I don't know, like they just, there's bits where they just push them, they hit them, they club them, but then there'll be a scene where someone falls and there's one zombie and there's zombies on them and they're like, oh, and the person's like, move the head, I don't have a clear shot. Yeah. And then the guy like grabs a fucking hammer or a screwdriver out of fucking nowhere and he stabs him in the head or whatever. You know, there's like, it just...
But it all takes
it
too
just
long.
felt
Every
so
time.
long. I was so angry. Like, I'm not going to lie. You sent me a message saying, I loathe this movie. And I came home from work. I had the worst fucking day I've had in fucking months. I have so much I have to think about and deal with. Ultimatums and all this stuff. And I was like, I just want to sit down and have fun with something.
Yeah.
And the movie was... Yeah, when you said loathing, I was like, holy shit, we're going to have such a juicy podcast. Because there's no way I agree with you. You're wrong, because I watched this movie. I watched Dawn of the Dead and Night of the Living Dead and the whole of the Dead franchise that Romero's made. All of them when I was like 15 to 18. And zombie movies and gory over-the-top zombie movies would be my third favorite genre. Simply by rewatching these movies, I don't think I can call myself a fan of zombies anymore. Because this exists in that genre of zombies. That's how much I fucking hated Dawn of the Dead. It was like, I don't know. I just kept, as soon as it started, I'm like, I just know I'm gonna love this. I remember the music being kind of weird and off. I remember so much of it, and I remember my main memory of it is the effects are dated, and I don't really agree with or consider the consumer stuff to be there. It's like there are shots where it's like the zombies are walking through the whole shopping center and it's just zombies and it's like, oh yeah, they're like real people. We're all zombies. But that feels like as half-baked as my like music teacher in high school being like, Jax, you're just a zombie because you have your iPod in your ear. If I took those iPods out of your head, like out of your ears, you'd die because you'll run off that.
If you were
a
a film critic, you would have gone, well, teacher, that's a biting commentary on corporatism and I don't know.
But it's fucking not. Setting it, being like, oh, humans who walk around in shopping centers all day, they're zombies, they just want to consume. It's like, you shut the fuck up. Like, I'm so sick of that dumb...
That's all there is, though.
Bullshit.
That's the thing.
It's not there. It's not there in the film. There's no moment where the characters are like... I don't know. They're like, hey, we can stay here in the mall. It's all good. Yeah. But it doesn't... I feel like if you really wanted me to... I really consider, are malls evil? Are we all zombies? This movie just makes me so... I don't know. It just made me angry. And I'm not a big fan. I literally hate shopping centers and malls. It's one of the issues with my work at the moment. It's like being forced to move to one of them. But I just hate it. It just felt so half-baked and...
Half-baked is the right word.
Yeah, it felt like... I felt like I was watching a film in media, in my like film school and uni. And it felt like I was watching a movie, and then the guy comes up and he's like, so my themes, and I juxtapositioned this with this. You know what I mean? It just had that you shut the fuck up and put some competent footage on the screen of the most cliche shit that we've all seen 100 times. It'll be better. Oh my God. I don't know. I feel like there's no redeeming things where I'm like, oh, but the performance is this. Like there were bits in the movie where I was like, wait, oh, that kind of sucks. Like, there was one bit where like the cocky cop he's been bitten already and all that bullshit's happened and he's like, we bloody got him. We're all, and like, I don't know. There was a bit where he was like, they all know he's dead and he's still kind of in denial, but he's like lying in the bed and it's just before he becomes a zombie and dies. And I liked that. I was like, oh shit, man. Like that really sucks. Like you're so close to kind of, I guess, kind of being safe in the mall. They'd kind of locked it down, but it's cost him his life. And that affected me on the marginalist amount of emotion. But I'm trying to think of another moment in the film that didn't just make me kind of angry or just so bored. Oh, I've just remembered another bit. When all the guys come into the mall and so they all come into the mall and they're like, we're going to fuck this shit up. We're here to take the mall. We're taking it. And they're like, oh my God. He shoots one of them. And they're like, fuck man, let's get out of here. Ooh. And it's like, what the fuck? You're not willing to like have one casualty? I don't know. It just felt so like...
When did the Thing come out?
The movie The Thing?
Yeah.
The 80s. I want to say 81 or 83, but that could be wrong.
So
why?
Well, I mean...
To compare effects? Don't do it.
No.
You're going to kill yourself. Don't do it.
I guess I am kind of comparing effects, but it's more that the like both movies I mean, The Thing is just so perfect.
The Thing is one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah,
it's great. It's perfect.
But I was watching it a couple of months ago, and my partner, who is just, she does not like horror films, does not like gore, does not like any of it, and was like, saw one of the early scenes in The Thing and ended up watching the entire movie with me, and at the end was like, that was really, really well done. And we sat there and talked about the effects and might have even watched some behind the scenes stuff. And just the sheer difference between that, for someone who I just know has absolutely no interest in anything in The Thing, but was still drawn into it by the craft of what was going on, and just it's just so well made. There's only four years maybe between these two movies. Her reaction to this movie was like seeing some gore effect, and just kind of like I just looked at her face and it was just and then just left the room.
Embarrassment. Like
that was
Keiran. Isn't it awkward how you think this isn't the worst thing ever? I was sitting there and I was thinking, you're right. You're absolutely right. And I am. Don't judge me. I'm watching this for a thing.
No,
I swear.
Judge me. If I saw someone watching this, I'd be like, what the fuck are you doing? Turn this off. It's real bad.
You realize at some point that you're going to die and that time isn't like forever, and you've wasted your time now. And this day is now. You can't get this 2 hours back. You've wasted it.
I really felt it.
That's how I felt.
I actually started doing other stuff. By the third act, I started exercising. I started doing like sit-up. Like I was still watching the movie. My eyes were on the screen. I was taking it all in. But other
things started. Yeah.
I got to the point where I was getting so enraged by it, and it was going on so long. This movie feels like it's 3 hours long because
it's so long.
It's relentless. The editing is just constantly. Yeah, I started writing a list of things I hate, and it started during Dawn of the Dead because I actually think Dawn of the Dead made me like Night of the Living Dead less. It made me think...
Oh, really? Oh, so you didn't actually, the things they did right, they did really right, because this is how bad it can go.
I think
it makes me like it more.
I think it says... Yeah, I don't know. I think it maybe that says more about me, where I become... I guess if you make something really good followed by something really bad, I'm more inclined to become cynical than I am to see the best in what you did. And that, like I said,
that's fair.
Might say more about me than the thing I'm looking at. But I think you can follow trend lines pretty accurately. And sometimes people just stumble up. I think that's what he did. He stumbled upon like a really, really great idea.
Yeah, he accidentally created zombies.
And he's not and I don't think he's incredibly...
He accidentally did it.
He's not a very competent filmmaker, but he is very good at maybe some of the imagery in Night of the Living Dead. I thought was, it's iconic. And one of the little things, I think the details are kind of what he does really well. Like in Night of the Living Dead, I kind of love how just one zombie is naked. I don't, and this is...
I know exactly which bit you mean, because there's like a big wide, and one of them that comes in is just naked in those big wides outside.
There's no...
Because she's just come out of the shower, or
exactly.
whatever.
Yeah,
I like that.
Little things like that. Like, just... there's a different amount of kind of gore on the zombies, and there's lots of... The details there, considering how long ago this movie was made, and the fact that it's not leaning on anything else to... like the 2004 Dawn of the Dead remake, he's basically just looked at all other zombie films and is kind of mishmashing together maybe just the most archetypal, straightforward zombie film you can make. But he's leaning on everything that came before. That doesn't do that. I feel like my train of thought has gone around in circles. And regardless of how I felt... Night of the Living Dead, I finished it. I thought it's quaint. I thought it's great. I thought there's some shaky stuff. Let's see what the next one does. The next one will probably make me go, he really took that and ran with it. He took all the wrong stuff and ran with it.
All the wrong stuff, yeah. That's the weird thing. I don't remember feeling that way either when I was a kid.
So I just started making a list as I was watching the movie, and I think initially it was like the music. I don't like the music.
Oh, Can I just, before we get too deep into your list of everything that's wrong with this fucking cunt of a movie.
We will probably stop on each dot point to...
Okay, fantastic. I just want to say, the music, and I literally will have to double check this because I've watched this movie in 4 sittings from about 7 p.m. last night. 10 p.m. I tried to rewatch it because I fell asleep. 3 a.m. And just for context, I have a really fucked job that I wake up at 4 a.m. every morning for. So my sleep patterns are kind of fucked. It's not as fucked as it sounds. But generally, for my day off, I tried to watch this so many times to get kind of into a thing. So I could be wrong, but I am pretty sure the music, the soundtrack was made by Goblin, who make the soundtrack for the movie Suspiria, which is literally, that movie is definition of gels and style over substance. The movie is literally no storyline. It's just woman goes to dance, school, and maybe, I don't want to say what it is, but the soundtrack will, witches. The soundtrack will tell you. It's by the same composer's Goblin, and it is the greatest soundtrack. The soundtrack makes the movie. I don't remember anything from that movie except for bright colors of red, intense over-the-top colors, and a soundtrack of just... I've listened to that soundtrack for years. Like 10 years later, I still listen to the soundtrack. Goblin, Suspiria, it's the greatest thing ever because it's so... unhinged, unnerving. Like it's like dancing on the top of what you think the music should be doing. It's so good. The idea that they made this soundtrack, and I haven't actually fully double checked because I hated the movie so much I didn't want to like skip over any footage before we started or check any of the things because it's not worth it. I don't have those 2 minutes in my day, but I'm pretty sure it is, and it's an embarrassment. Just like the whole movie, the soundtrack. There's a bit, I should stop just to play it to remind myself, but it's like, at the end of the movie, there's like 100 zombies walking through the ice skate rink and like just parts of the shopping mall. And the music's like, dun, 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 you know, it's got that kind of like circusy kind of carnival, like ringy round that fucking merry-go-round, the fucking merry-go-rounds when you're on the horse that's going up and down, has that awful like like that kind of music that makes you just go like, oh, isn't this music so contrasty to the horrific, jovial, vile imagery that we're seeing, man eating man and all this fucking bullshit. And it just felt so like, every single aspect of Dawn of the Dead, like at the end of Dawn of the Dead, there is a moment where it's like a 2-minute montage of just seeing the zombies eat flesh. Had no effect on me. I was so angry and bored at that point that just, I knew this scene was going to take up lots of time. The effects, like someone rips off an arm and then their arm is just trying to get in. And just, so bad effects. Whereas I think one of the most effective things in Night of the Living Dead was that an hour and 20 minutes into the movie, they'd slowly built up due to these news reports that we keep seeing, and they'd revealed that like they eat the flesh of those they kill. They eat the flesh of those they kill. And then 10 minutes later, we get a really intense, about a minute montage, and you just see all these zombies outside just... And they just eat, and it was just that moment for me, because I felt like my least favorite part of Night of the Living Dead was the first 20 minutes. It's like, oh, the zombies are bad, the effects are bad, I'm not scared, I'm not tense. If you just show me this 5-minute clip and I didn't know, because I've known since film school or, just loving all this stuff for so long, I knew this was a classic. I'm doing the finger thing. You can't see because we're in the same room. I'm doing the finger thing to imply that what I'm saying is wrong. The classic kind of scene at the start where he's like, ooh, they're coming to get you, Barbara. Ooh. And it's like, I get it because they're actually coming. Oh my God, kill me now. If you shoot it, like Kieran, if you were like, I shot this scene to start my zombie movie, I would have been like, Kieran, don't quit your day job. This sucks. And I wouldn't be able to tell you that because I'd be your friend. I'd be like, oh man, I get it.
No, you should if you're my friend. Tell me.
But do you know what I mean? Truth. Like, it's like, if you showed me this out of context saying, I have a friend, he thinks he makes films, he has money, but look what he made. I'd be like, it's nothing. I don't want take my name off it. Make this an Alan Smith produced thing. You know what I mean? Like it has
Alan
that
Smithy, yeah.
Yeah, well, whatever. Yeah, but I don't know. I felt like the start had this like really cheesy, dated kind of like. I don't know. It's like it's totally of the era, but it just absolutely didn't work for me.
It makes me wonder if a movie. I mean, what is the line at which we call something a movie and we don't? You know,
technically, it is a movie because it's like. But it doesn't even feel competently made. Like a lot of the shots, like for instance, if you said, I've made this really good film and we shot for 3 weeks in a house and we've got all this great footage. There's a bald man, he's a coward. There's this tall, strong, leading man. We've got the female and she's just sitting there crying because I guess that's what we do in the 60s. And, you know, we've got all these scenes and these things. We've got stupid ways for characters to die and leave the house. Or we've got classic, I think that the conundrum for me for the first movie is he's just like, we need to stay in the basement. And they're like, you're insane. That's ridiculous. Let's not do that. That feels real. And then when I don't know, I just feel like there's so many parts where it's just like, it kept cutting outside to the zombies walking. And it was just like a big wide shot of outside. There's like a car in the frame. And then like the first time there's like 3 zombies and they're like, Then the next time we see it, it's like 5 zombies and they're like, And it just kept cutting. Like there'd be tense moments where they're inside debating, how are they going to deal with this situation? What are they going to do? And then it would just like, cut to the outside shot and there'd be these crickets like I can't do the cricket sound. I don't know what that was.
No, there were a lot of cricket.
It's like that cricket sound, like that crickety, like, oh, it's quiet sound. And it would just cut to a shot of outside and the zombies are all just like, oh, I've suddenly realized I'm doing all these motions. You can't see me.
I feel like I can hear the motions through the...
But you know what I mean? It's like you saw the same movie. It's like it cuts outside. It's really awkward. It's slow. It's non-menacing. And there was one time that it cut to them and it cut outside and I felt the motion of 3 to 5 actors who were playing zombies standing still. And then I didn't hear here, but I could hear. They'd cut it out, but I could hear him going, action. And then the zombies were like, ooh. And they started to move as the shot played. It's like, no! 101, if you're running, you have to be running before I call action. Because then I get that momentum. If you need to stop in a scene, you need to be running. You can't just stop because the momentum of you running and stopping is different to pretending to run and stop. It was like so many little basic things I felt were missing.
Yeah.
And then there were some really nice, like strong elements like the main character survives but is killed. That's powerful and haunting.
But also the
execution...
honestly,
it makes you forget a lot of the film when you're like, fuck me.
Yeah.
He died. You know, like, so you leave the film with this like harrowing horror, which is kind of like the theme and feel of the movie. But I just think that like, I don't know. I feel like I was going somewhere, but I've got so caught up with how much I hated Night of the Living Dead. I feel like I was bringing it back to something with Dawn of the Dead, but now I'm just like, oh, wait, was it? Yes, it's just the montage, like, it keeps cutting in Night of the Living Dead to the outside. It's like a it's all black and white, but it's like a night shot. All of them is like, ooh. But I feel like that builds to a really nice moment where they go into the car and we see the car, it's smoky, it's misty, it's gross, and they just get into that car and the zombies just, one after another, they go in, they pick up the meat they need, and then there's just like a shot where like, they're all just like sitting down, like, you know, with their legs crossed and shit, just like eating this meat. And it's so like fucked and like, man, they're just like fucking eating them. And it had weight. And I felt like in the sequel, right at the end, there was about a 2-minute montage where they're like, we've got to show them all eating in the flesh and stuff. And they just kept ripping out this intestine of this one guy. And all I kept thinking was like, who the fuck's this guy that died? They introduced the villains of the piece 30 minutes in because like all good zombie movies and like The Walking Dead when it was good, like fucking Game of Thrones when it used the zombies good, the zombies are never the actual villain. It's just the concept of the zombie, the concept of death is coming. How do we as humans deal with the idea of death is coming? Mm-hmm. And I think Game of Thrones was always the strongest when it had Jon being like, I hate you, you hate me, I hate that guy, we all hate the Thens, blah, 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 but fuck that, we're all dead if we don't band together. It's like the strongest stuff in these type of zombie things is like the idea of how does man fight man? And so this fucking movie's like finale is like these fucking rebel bandit whatever's come in. Just feels so half-baked and like, I don't know, I didn't feel anything like, I didn't feel like they had failed to infiltrate. I don't know, you don't need to humanize your villains, but they weren't villainous enough, they weren't humanized enough.
We've seen the bandits done well too many times, especially recently. Like, I mean, not even done particularly well, but done better. Like Waterworld had some bandits, and Rain of Fire, Matthew McConaughey's part of the bandit team.
My god.
You know what I mean? The bandits rock up and have some weight in all these other movies that aren't even particularly great. You know, we're talking about Waterworld and Rain of Fire. And even like something that, you know, you would consider great, like a Mad Max 2. You know, the bandits are just, they're done in a way that I feel like, I don't know why the tension was lacking. Why I was so uninvested by the time they rock up.
Because they rocked up an hour and 45 minutes into the movie, man. Like, I literally clicked my fucking computer to check. Because I was like, what the fuck? There's still a movie to go?
More importantly, I think, like, the second last thing I wrote in my notes, you know, is I don't care if all these people die.
Yeah.
Because I don't care. I just don't care about any of the characters in the movie. To be honest,
Flyboy? Not even Flyboy? He has a nickname and everything, Kieran. They gave him so much weight.
I'm so angry at the movie. I want the characters to die. For some weird, distorted reason. Like, that doesn't even make sense. Like, I don't know.
Brutal, bro.
Maybe there's some catharsis if there's a... There wasn't, though.
So I don't know. I kind of have a feeling you didn't do much research after you watched it, because like, why would you waste your time? But the ending of the movie, where you got the main guy, the black guy, he's got the gun to his head, that tiny little gun. He's got the gun to his head. He's like, I'm gonna. Okay, you know. So it's like okay. I know that like not every film has to be like so tightly wrapped around with its characters that it's like everything needs to be like, I understand this perfectly. There can be some nuance in how characters react. You know, like I can I don't know, but I'm muddling with what I'm trying to say. I guess what I'm trying to say is he, at the end of the movie, is suddenly like, I don't want to go. You get on the helicopter, lady character. You go with your baby. I am going to fucking kill myself. It's like, what?
Yeah.
What the fuck? What moment in this whole fucking movie has even indicated in the most minuscule amount that you are going to kill yourself rather than just chance an escape? Do you know what I mean? Like, even I just felt like everything about the movie was wrong.
As you're saying this, I'm like realizing, like, I remember all of these shots and everything in my head, but I think I was just so disconnected. I wasn't even picking apart the logic anymore because I'd come
you're close to the end and you're like, please just end.
No, and
just kill yourself and end.
I've come to the conclusion there's no logic here. There's no, like, what you said earlier in Night of the Living Dead, you're like, he hates women. Or, you know, he has like a very negative perception of them.
He does. In his opinion, from these two movies, they are useless,
and
crying.
I'm inclined to agree based on what's in the movies, but at the same time, I don't know that he is just even interested in...
It's more naive. He's accidentally created these characters. Accidentally made them.
It's a byproduct of poor direction and having no story and nothing to do. More so than it's a byproduct of him being like an evil misogynist. Being like,
I'm going to have this character say this, and then this character's going to be like, fuck yeah. You're probably right.
Because the wife character isn't ridiculously stupid in Night of the Living Dead, and she's just a normal person kind of, and they do forget her and they say there's three of us, but also the husband's kind of a dick, and
there's stuff in it where I'm like, it doesn't feel like it just felt like this nagging part of me just felt so like, I don't know, it's like, is he meant to do this in a way? Because in Dawn of the Dead, the first 45 minutes, she's complaining that they are excluding her. And then literally the main character's like, the husband's like, oh, I guess wife. And then the main character's like, I feel like she's kind of got some valid points here, bro. Like, there are four of us. And then she gets taught how to fly the helicopter. She learns how to shoot. And, you know, it does all these things. But I don't know, man. I just feel like, when she learns to do the helicopter, it's like, okay, because Flyboy is going to die then. And then right at the end of the movie, Flyboy dies right at the end. And it just feels so like, well, why would have you had him train her to do the helicopter? I don't know. It just, everything felt like...
There's nothing there. There's nothing there. I can't even muster up the energy to anything. Because there's nothing there. There's nothing there to chew on. There's nothing there to discuss. There's nothing there to talk about. This movie is a 2-hour, 20-minute showreel of average to bad effects.
Bad effects. Embarrassingly bad
Of
effects.
a good idea that a guy had a decade earlier that he has not been able to grow into anything fruitful. And it's just... all of the worst parts are doubled down on that from that first movie, and none of the interesting good stuff that you want him to do is done. But it all does end up getting done by better people later on. Like, we saw people take these ideas in the right direction. I think we've seen people reanalyze all of what he was able to construct here and make it palatable and make it work. And maybe that's the purpose George Romero was there to serve, just to
pave the way.
The only part where I really laughed out loud at something was when the cop went crazy and blew the guy's head off, because it was so ridiculous. And I thought that was a point in the movie I remember going, oh, this might be really fun.
And then it might take that step over and then take 10 more steps.
But then it never takes that step over again. There's just...
No, it jumps way fucking back, man.
It feels like an anomaly. That feels like someone working on another movie just thought that would be a fun thing to throw in, and then Romero
It feels like he stole that from the guy he made Night of the Living Dead with. Because I don't know if I told you, but the franchise that gets... the guy who made Night of the Living Dead with him... I don't know if it's a producer or a writer or whatever. I've forgotten now, but he moved on and made the Living Dead series. And then George Romero got the Of the Dead part. So he's made the Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead.
This has
whatever.
all become so much more simple.
And then some other guy who made Night of the Living Dead, he went off to make Return of the Living Dead, which I think is one of the 3 zombie films ever made. In my opinion...
Doesn't this explain it?
No, 100%.
That guy had all the good ideas.
Two guys who made a great film... And then George Romero, or whatever the fuck, I don't even care what his name is. He went off and made trash, and this other guy went off and made the zombie movie ever. And then Peter Jackson 10 years later made a better zombie movie. But it could only have come from Return of the Living Dead. And in Return of the Living Dead, it does all the things. I don't want to say a single thing, but you'll watch it and you'll go, oh, I see. Because I don't know, it's so much fun. It's just so this feels so harrowing, but without the actual weight a harrowing film should have. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you're going to watch something that is 90 to 120 minutes of the world sucks and nihilism and man eating man, literally, how do you fight that? This film just feels like it doesn't dare to step into the horrors that really is. And yet it doesn't want to have fun with that either. And so it's if you're not going to do one or the other, you're stuck in this horrible, awful middle ground. And then you don't even on top of... when we talk about Reign of Fire, it's the most middling of a film. But the dragon effects are so good, at least there's that. And I feel like a lot of the movie... I don't know, yeah. In this movie, if the zombie effects are incredible, I would just be interested to see how much... I'd probably find extra things in the character choices, the moments, the way the film plays out. Whereas I felt like it was so meandering and so boring that it was just the zombies are this movie. They're shitly made. They're poorly construed. They stumble around the set as if they're unsure of where to go. Even just down to that first zombie that gets through that stairwell. And it's a fucking... monk with a tambourine. I don't know, man. I just, you know what I mean? It's what is that? What was the decision behind that choice to make that zombie like that? It just so much of the film felt I don't know. I don't know what I want from it either. And I kind of wish I'd seen Dawn of the Dead, the remake again, just to be is it like, did it fix stuff?
Yes.
Because all I remember is the first
everything
really
is
good,
fixed.
you know?
The first scene is excellent in Dawn of the Dead. It might
Isn't
be
the first scene like a beautiful like one shot as this woman like opens her door to get the mail and the world ends in front of her?
I don't think it's not a one shot. It's
I don't know. Maybe that's a different film. I don't know.
It's her waking up and like her husband. There's like the little girl from next door is like in their house.
Right.
And,
is there like a one shot early on that's like very much like, look at the world?
Well, she runs out of the house and down the street and like everything is kind of collapsing. But I think that the little girl in the house is like the truly... Well, it's the makeup is exceptional. Even now, like it looks perfect.
Yeah, I'm getting excited thinking about how good it could look. Zombie effects can look so... Like, my favorite thing of Walking Dead was just, like, each week in Season 3 was just, like, there's going to be 20 bad effects, but one unbelievably exceptional effect. And they're going to tear a face off. They're going to rip some eyeballs out. They're going to slit a throat. And it's going to look like... You know, like, not to be so gory loving, but it's like, it's part of it, you know? I don't know.
I don't think I particularly... like zombies
I love
in the genre, and I think that really what I like about anything zombie related is when there's a spin on it.
Yeah,
and when
a take that you can grab,
or an energy that hasn't been brought to it before, or like I need something more, and that's why I just...
Oh my god, I'm so keen to show you all the good zombie films that exist.
But it's why I loathed The Walking Dead, sorry. It's why I didn't like that show, because that show...
It's terrible.
The show can't sustain itself because all it is like... I mean, what is a zombie? It's just... It's a dead person who's been brought back to life, who kind of walks slowly at you and can bite you and eat you. And there's maybe like 6 interesting things you can do with that. And like you said before, the real drama comes out of the interpersonal relationships, the man fighting man, the breakdown of society, the survivalists. Like all of these things are what makes zombie films interesting. Like the scope and scale, like... There are interesting concepts that you can explore by using zombies that I think are explored really well in certain films, but at its core, it's just... The Walking Dead doesn't work because at a point you realize the writers don't care about any of these characters and they're following a very simplistic TV formula, which is mid-season character, we kill a character off, there's a little bit of zombie scare, they get overrun, they move on to the next location, copy, paste, repeat. And that's I
was just going to say, I mean, I don't want to make this I Hate the Walking Dead episode, but just in terms of like, as someone who's been the biggest, like literally spent like 6 months in film school arguing with my like feminist like teachers about like zombies and just being like, you know, the basic like, I just like gore, explosions of blood, kill the head, all these things. It's like, there's all that stuff as like a 15 to 18-year-old guy's like, you just want to throw these effects. I just want to have fun. I want to have a shoe and put some fucking sausages in there, make them look like toes and have someone eat them. Like, just all this silly, dumb, insane stuff. But then I think there are some really great, horrific, really human stuff you can tell with zombies. Like the Walking Dead comics, the most iconic moment I remember is the main character doing a whole speech to everyone, and they're in the prison, they've locked down the prison, but then there's been some infighting or some shit like that. And the line is like, ba 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 ba, speech, speech, speech. And then he's like, we are the Walking Dead. And he's like, and it's over the top and a bit dramatic and a bit, you know, in your face, a bit overt. But it's essentially being like, if we keep living like this, we are no better than these literally mindless flesh that just stumble about. So how do we rise up and be better than now? And I don't know. And, you know, just like the idea of like, it's easier to fall to their level to fight that. But how do we stay above that level to be more, to stay human? You know, like just there are so many themes and feelings you can get. There are so many. I feel like I was caught up in saying 2,000 things at once, but I guess I just feel like once you step into this kind of horrific nihilistic world, you either I feel like I guess with zombies, I feel like you either take the deep plunge that the Walking Dead comics do, which is your villains are going to tie you up, rape you, chop your hands off, and fuck you up because their fucking daughter is a zombie in a cage and they've lost it. They were a gym teacher, but they fucking lost it. Or you go, how crazy would this be? And then you show an insane, stupid zombie thing. I was going to have an example, but it's one of the films I want to show in the next couple of weeks. So I just don't want to say fucking anything. But it's like, you have a 50-50 kind of opportunity to be like really fun, obscene, but like honestly staying true to the concepts and themes of like, yeah, I don't know. It's just, there are so many ways to do this, to just have characters be like, yeah.
I think I figured out the perfect way to say it. Zombies,
yes. Okay, go.
Zombies for zombies' sake don't work. And
absolutely not.
Every piece of entertainment that contains zombies for zombies' sake doesn't work and ultimately falls apart. Because if all you're doing is exploring that very, that very simple, almost now archetypal concept of the dead rising, eating flesh, spreading, reanimating other people. We've seen these things kind of play out, but the general gist of it we're so familiar with now that if you're just doing that, you're not doing anywhere near enough. And I think that has been true for a very, very long... I mean, really the only person who could just do zombies for zombies' sake was in that Night of the Living Dead, that original film. That was the only time it was okay to do that. Yeah?
But see, I don't even think that that's fair to just like... I mean, maybe not fair is not the right word, but like when I watch that film, I'm not like zombies for zombies. It's like, for me, the movie is a movie of like five-ish people, and just like one guy's like, we should stay here and do this. The other guy's like, we should do this. And it's more of like the general opposing of views in a situation. In all situations, high risk, low risk, fucking ordering dinner. It's
a power struggle. Yeah.
It's a power struggle. It's one person being like, I think this is the right reason because of this. And the other character being like, fuck you, you're a dumb cunt. It's this. Because of obviously this. And then you as the audience are like, I agree with A, or I agree with B, or this. And you come into this world, and then suddenly all these things, and then you come up with all these, I don't know, it invests you. There's so much I think can be done. And like when I think about zombies, when I think about like what works with zombies and the best zombie scenes for me, I'm not like, oh, remember that time there was like 20 zombies in a big wide shot outside a supermarket and 2 trucks rolled past and some zombies jumped from the side of the trucks as if the trucks fucking hit them. You didn't fool me, film. You didn't hit any humans. Poorly made. I feel like the moments that make me feel like anything is like the moment where the mum character, I literally can't remember which fucking film this was in, but the mum character is like on the bed or on the ground or whatever, just screaming as like the zombie child comes up and then stabs her. No, it's the first movie. Yeah, the child that's been sick all movie that is going to turn, and like the child that's been their reason to stay safe and they're more secluded, but then more, we're trapped. Like the Helm's Deep situation. Like, we can stay here at Helm's Deep, but then once we go into those caves, we don't have a back door.
I think
it's the Helm's Deep argument.
I think
but in that it works for me,
I think the daughter twist is one of the reasons that this movie worked as well as it did, and why it loses probably a lot now. Because we've seen that a million times. Well, and no, we just know the mythology. We just know the mythology of.
So we know what's going to happen? Is that
we know? Yeah, if you've been bitten.
Yeah. I can't imagine what I'd feel if I was like, oh my god, the daughter's dead. Oh.
Yeah, the zombies in the house too. Like they've been trying to keep them out. And if you get bitten, that's like a revelation in the movie. And then it kind of... I feel like that has a lot more if it's not...
There is like 3 moments in Night of the Living Dead where the TV is like, this is the TV news report and we're giving you some information. bash the heads in, or whatever the hell they
Yeah.
say. There's like 3 moments where they say a thing, and I'm like, yeah, dude, I've seen. I'm not an idiot. I know what zombies are. Like, don't tell me as if I don't know what a zombie is. Like,
Yeah.
But you are right. It's like it's slowly revealing these like huge revelations, and
from a screenwriting point of view, the script, I
think it's pretty tight in that
pays
regard.
off
Like,
something
you've
that they
got to
set
you've
up.
got to think that it didn't have other zombie movies to like fall back on, like, which I feel like everything now it's like you did this, but there's so much context beforehand to like have made a better decision, and like that does kind of matter in a way, because like the things that Night of the Living Dead does that don't work necessarily, and maybe just, you know, the hokiness of seeing a couple of zombies outside, like, ooh, doesn't work especially well. But like back then, maybe it was like, I don't know, very
for sure.
revolutionary and cool.
The imagery, I think that there's enough there. I understand why it's a classic. I don't understand why Dawn of the Dead is a classic. That's the big difference between the two. I get Night of the Living Dead. I see how it is aged. I see the maybe even the issues with it at the time when it came out. And I even read some criticism that the contemporary critics in 68 leveled against it, and I can see exactly what they're saying. They're saying the same stuff about any horror that kind of pushes the boundaries.
Too gory.
Of course.
Too spooky. Yeah.
It's lots of that stuff, and it's funny just seeing that
quaint. The quaintest of things.
Every 10 years that happens, and the limits with that humans can cope with in film is pushed ever
there's bullshit reports of people leaving paranormal activities and shit. They're like, they vomited in the cinema, it's too much for your eyes to handle. It's like,
what happened? Like a camera fell over. Isn't that the third act of that movie? It's like some footsteps.
I actually haven't seen.
You haven't seen it?
I refuse. I think jumps. Well, no. I don't know. For
Because
context, jump scares, I don't know, just feel like it's not like
they're not jump scares. You're thinking about it's like saying I don't like Saw, and I know you do like Saw.
I love Saw.
It's like saying I don't like Saw because Saw 6 sucks, but Saw 1 is like a classic film.
Oh yeah, Saw 1 is so weird in contrast to the franchise it created. But I think all good horror franchises have this weird, like, really tight, strong first film. Yeah. And then if you look at the franchise, like if you watch fucking Jason 10, where he goes to space and freezes people in ice cubes and smashes them. It's great. I actually think it's the only Jason film I like. But if you actually watch the original, it's such a tight horror, classic slasher movie. And I think it gets worse and worse until about 6 or 7, where it kind of gets better again because it's so dumb. But there's so many.
The first one, it's his mum.
It's not even Jason.
He drowned in the lake as a boy. Yeah.
The Friday the 13th films remind me a lot of Rambo, where the first film is from a different franchise, and then the sequel goes, "What if it was actually this kind of franchise?" And then the rest of the films are that. Because I feel like Jason's first movie is like a tight horror film, and then they become the classic dumb slasher, and Rambo's like a drama about a post-war dude, and then the rest are just how many men can he shoot with a giant gun in the least amount of time in a foreign country? That's the Rambo franchise after one.
I watched the first Rambo film for the first time very recently.
Oh, really?
And I loved it.
It's so good.
And then I put the second one on, and I'm like, oh no, what have you done? And I watched the second one, but I was like, this isn't what I wanted. And then I
watch the third. It's so insane.
No, I put the third one on, and I got about halfway, and I turned it off. And I
actually think in the third one, he's on the side of the actual Taliban. I think there's something weird like that.
Yeah, but I can't
remember specifically, but it's something really insane.
It's exactly what you said. It's too far removed. I liked the first one because it was a completely different thing. But Friday the 13th is like the opposite, where it doesn't find its feet until like the second, third, maybe even fourth movie. And by find its feet, I mean become what it is
generic trash slasher movie.
Yeah, because
I hate that franchise.
The first Friday the 13th isn't even that good, I don't think. Nightmare on Elm Street is a better, like where the first one is a pretty solid movie. Or Halloween, the first movie is like pretty good.
The rest are not great. Yeah, those films I find really fascinating because I feel like so many of these old horror things get into this like thing where it's like you got Freddy, you got Jason, and then when I was like 15 or some shit, they released a movie called Freddy vs. Jason, the most 90s thing. I think it didn't come out in the 90s though, but it's like feels like the most 90s. Like, just let's have these guys fight and I remember being like, well, I've seen all the Freddy movies, and because Freddy vs. Jason is so much fun and so insane, and Jason brings this machete cutting through anything vibe, I was like, I am so fucking keen for Friday the 13th series. I remember going to my brother's house. He lived in Ballarat at the time. It's like 2 hours from where I live. I drove up. I went to the JB. I spent like my day's wage on fucking 7 fucking DVDs. Yeah. And we started watching them. I have still got the whole franchise on DVD. And I think at 4... you can just tell that I haven't watched them because like the plastic is still on the DVDs. Like it just goes 1, 2, 3, and then 4 onwards, and then 10 I couldn't buy at the time, which I was so devastated about because I knew he went to space, and I downloaded it, and that's pretty good, but
it's not good enough.
It's not great though. You know, it's only good in I don't know. It's just I feel like these big iconic things come from something, and sometimes you're like, I don't get it. Whereas I watch Freddy, and I think Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors is probably one of the best sequels ever made. It's up there with Blade Runner 2049 in my opinion, with best sequels. It's that good. I think just in terms of like what a sequel can do, how it takes the concepts of what the film does.
It's funny
I
you
think
say
as
that
well
because...
in contrast. Oh, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, it's funny you say that because so many people say Dawn of the Dead is one of the greatest sequels of all time.
Oh my God. Every single human being who's ever said that.
Despite not being a fucking sequel, by definition.
It's just another film.
It's not, it's, I mean, it is very clearly set in a time period different to the first one. It has no connective plot or anything to the first one. Like, they could have, one throwaway line that something like this happened out in the country 10 years ago, or, you know, like, trying to figure out why I didn't like this movie. Was it just that my sensibilities are too modern, that I'm, you know, the zombie things that I consumed but I don't think that's correct because I like...
No. Don't think that. I love old school gory trash. This is just garbage. It's not a good film.
Yeah, it's not.
I prefer to see gory... To yeah, no, like for instance, like... part of me, instead of watching, like, I don't know, I have a few zombie films by, like, some foreign directors. And I don't even know if they're technically zombies, but there's one movie called Demons that has, like, projectile green slime, zombie-like demon characters. And, you know, it's just, I don't know. I feel like I almost want to try and research and do a bit more just because it's been so long since I've kind of delved into this world. But I think there are some really good films from this era that would make you really question why this film is even in any film conversation whatsoever when it comes to horror. Because honestly, it made me embarrassed to like... I feel like as I was watching this movie, I'm like, I like old school horror zombie trash. Have people seen this? Like, is this what my teachers thought I liked when I was in high school?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, did they just see this movie and they didn't see Evil Dead or Brain Dead or Reanimator or Hellraiser or any of the 1,000 good movies? Like, do they just see this classic? I did the fingers thing again. This classic fucking, I don't know. It made me kind of feel sad at points. But I'm so angry at other work-related things in my life that I wasn't so sad. I just got fucking foul and angry.
I think you get really disappointed finding out that when something is really held in high regard, and then
it's like
you
the
just
whole
can't.
world's insane.
Yeah, you can't really figure out what it is. Yeah, I really can't. I don't even know what else to say about it. I thought I would actually have. I actually thought I would have a much more interesting discussion about it, but it really just feels like very simply explained by the fact that he just figures stuff out on the day. Has a bunch of guns. Has a halfway decent special effects guy. With varying results all the way throughout the movie.
I think there are some effects that do look fine, but it's just the general
like their
idea
head getting
that someone
chopped
went
off by the helicopter or something.
Yeah, sure. But you know what? I don't know. Not to be rude, but it's like, do you know what that is? That's someone just spending the time to make. I don't know. It feels like,
no, it is. You're exactly
it's
right.
like if you're going to make one effect look that good, don't then have 30,000 zombies for 2 hours have blue face, where I feel like I'm watching offcuts of like someone doing a fan-made thing of Arrested Development Blueface shit. Like, it's just so embarrassing that they put it on. The eyes don't feel proper. Some of the actors they're just like,
But
it felt embarrassing to me for most of the time. I was cringing.
I don't think you would have cared about any of that if the movie was working.
No, of course not. Of course not. The effects in The Night of the Living Dead are atrocious. The first zombie that appears is garbage. But 45 minutes into that film, there's a bit where like the zombies almost breach in and there's like some tension, and I wasn't like, oh, I was just like, holy shit, I'm invested.
I want this
these
to be
fucking
great.
cowards you know, like I see where this character's coming from. I see where this character's coming from. I see where this character's coming from. I understand the conflict because this character's clearly risen to the occasion and this character hasn't. But I was genuinely interested because I remember the dude who survives dies. Like I do remember, because I'd seen these films years ago. I do remember that plot point, but I wasn't like, well, I know which character survives. I just remember being like, leaving the movie being like, oh fuck, they all got killed. And so just I don't know, I guess the conflict and the characters and the realism that these people, you know, they would both be the same fucking character before the movie started. But how they adapt to this situation, even in the very broad strokes that they were painted in, it was enough to connect me where when we got the montage of cannibalism or whatever, it really hit me home. It was like, holy shit, like, they're fucked. This is like a fuck situation. You have the fun, like, characters, like, slowly, the redneck gun-toting guy slowly moving through, and then just everything in two just... Because, something I was going to say before, and I might have said this, but I think I haven't. It definitely is set in the same franchise because, I mean, I just know that for a fact, but it's like, so you don't like the, like, it just because obviously, I mean, you don't like these films, but generally speaking, the concept of 6 films taking place 3 months to 3 years apart as the apocalypse and as humanity itself changes to how it wants to adapt. Do you like the idea of it? Like if the movies have been good, would you have enjoyed that they don't have the same characters or feel or style, but have that same, technically, that same universe?
But what about it is the same universe? Like, there's nothing...
So in the first one, the zombies have just hit. They've just been risen. There was some radiation.
Yeah, and then the second one is 10 years later, but it hasn't been...
No, it's not 10 years later. It's made 10 years later. It's set 3 to 4 weeks later, I think.
But it's not, because it's very
Isn't it
clearly... No, because the first movie is in the 60s, and the second one is in 1978, and everything has very noticeably aged 10 years. And like,
see, I don't know if my brain snapped for the actual aging of the decades and the hair and all that stuff.
And again, it's fine.
You're right, though.
It's fine. Yeah. All you need is one line. But it fucking annoys me when people call things sequels when they are not sequels. This is not a sequel to the first movie in any way, thematically, narratively, by characters, by tangential plot point. They're not at all related to each other. These are 2 completely separate movies about the beginning of the apocalypse. Yeah?
Yeah.
And they are... I mean, there's obviously completely different teams. The through line is the director between the 2. But it really, I mean, people can call it a sequel. It just doesn't fit my definition of sequel. It's kind of, but I have arbitrary meanings. It's like when people call things a trilogy because there's 3 movies. And I go, no, No, that is... Indiana Jones is not a trilogy. I know now there are 4 movies, but even when there were 3, it wasn't a trilogy because it's not a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's 3 anthology movies. The second movie is set before the first movie. You know, there's not... Star Wars is... The original trilogy is a trilogy with a beginning, a middle, and an end. It follows the 3-act structure, both in each individual movie and broadly as the 3. Back to the Future is a trilogy. Pirates of the Caribbean is a trilogy, and then has a couple of sequels after. But a trilogy is a beginning, a middle, and an end. And I think a sequel that had none of the same people, and none of the same places, and none of the same themes, and you know what I mean? But there was this one thing that's the same, and you called it a sequel. I'd be like, you can call it whatever you want, but I'm not going to go along with it. I just don't know why you have to call it that. You're really, all of it to me seems like is like a half-assed cash grab to profit off the first movie, which is better.
Okay.
I mean, you're just... Yeah, it's just the name recognition, and you have no interest in doing anything in this universe. Or maybe it's just what we've come to understand as a sequel has changed over time, and doing something tangentially related is enough to call it that, and maybe now we don't consider it because sequels have become something else, and there are expectations that come along with the sequel. Like, is Hot Fuzz a sequel to Shaun of the Dead?
Oh, no, like that kind of thing. It's like, well, I think, like, because they're not in the same universe, you've got the actors playing different characters. That's more of like a feeling trilogy. Yeah. You know, it's like, that's more of a creative team trilogy. But I think like the same director and 2 actors.
I agree. And I'm just saying, I think you could make a better argument. That's a sequel. Yeah.
I actually think you could probably, like, if you were doing a movie fight and you were going to, like, fight against someone trying to convince me, you'd probably be able to get a stronger case because of the way it, like it has things that, like the third movie's cornetto reveal is at the end of the movie and doesn't work unless you're like, oh shit, cornetto reference, because it's the third movie, and they just like slide it in, and there's just
it feels like they forgot in the third one.
Yeah, and the third
feels like if we got to put it in, because that end sequence as well. I know it's not. I don't think it's a reshoot, but it feels like a reshoot. Really?
So I think that's a very obvious. Hey, you thought we'd put it in an obvious first act moment like the other 2, but we put it at the end of the third act as a reminder this was a connective tissue. I also think the idea of casting Nick Frost and Simon Pegg as the opposite roles of the first 2 strengthens the acting, because Nick Frost's straight man is like better than Simon Pegg's straight man, which I don't think you thought he could do. And then Simon Pegg's drunk trying to relive the past, I think is a much stronger character and much better played than the doofus Nick Frost plays in the first 2. I don't know. I think you mentioned that as a trilogy. I mean, it's a perfect trilogy. They're 3 perfect movies. So it's not fair because we're talking about 2, one okay movie, one terrible movie. But the way that they even structure jokes in the third movie, knowing it's a trilogy, I think strengthens the fact it is a trilogy. There is no fucking way in Day or whatever the fuck of the Dead, the third movie is, that they have that kind of thought.
See, Day of the Dead. Day of the Dead being... So you're saying Day of the Dead takes place, say, years into the apocalypse.
So Dawn of the Dead, I think, takes place a month or so in, whereas the first one, Night, is like the first days. I think I Googled something like that in the last few days. I could be wrong.
Which I get. I see that, but apart from the time frame with which the apocalypse takes place, and the fact that there are zombies in all of them, there's not really anything else. It's
no. It's literally the timeline of the zombies that connects the movies. There's no characters, no themes, no feeling. Yeah. The movies all feel kind of different as well, as far as I remember. But I'm pretty sure I got to 4 or 5 and was like, oh, like each movie, it's like 60s, 70s, 80s. And then I'm pretty sure the 4th, 5th, and 6th are all like 2 years apart in like 07, 09, 011 or something, you know? And it's just like, that's when they get really like, oh my God, you're the godfather of zombies? Maybe you should just fucking die already.
You just say...
No, that's the meanest thing I've said.
No, it's not.
I don't think he should die.
He's not the godfather.
But as a filmmaker, he should die. He sucks. Stop making movies. He sucks. It sucks. But I guess we should be grateful because zombies... But then should I be grateful? Because maybe if he hadn't made zombies, Game of Thrones wouldn't suck. And I wouldn't hate my life. And I wouldn't think of the idea of love as something
Game of Thrones would have sucked anyway.
Oh my God, I know. I'm just trying to make excuses for my like hatred of all things that exist now.
Zombies
suck. They suck.
Zombies are a genre.
100%.
You know, it does feel almost... I mean, I guess they're a genre, but then can be in a larger genre. Shaun of the Dead's a comedy or a horror.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't know what this is. This is like... It doesn't even feel like a horror movie, Dawn of the Dead. You wouldn't call it a horror movie. Like the first one...
The idea that people at one point were scared... The idea that I saw reviews from 2001 to 2020 about this movie that had the words horror, but with 5 stars, it's like... What's wrong with you? Like... The movie The Vitch exists.
It's closer to an action
like
film.
Hereditary exists. What do you mean this is a horror film? This is a fucking joke. It's a joke of a movie. But it's embarrassing. Just technically, it's not scary at all.
It feels closer to an action film than a horror film.
Yeah. The way it's got like just shot of zombie, shot of gun, shot of zombie, shot of gun.
Yeah.
It's very... The way you were saying he just shot stuff... Most of the film feels like he just went, we're going to have 2 weeks where I just shoot actors holding weapons and then close-ups of zombies being like, and then just shoot their heads out. And then I'll just piece them together throughout the film when the film gets boring. And then the editor's like, but the whole film's boring. It's like, fucking put them throughout the whole movie then. I don't care.
Spoiler Talk is produced by KCBN Studios and Space Kraken Media.